Coming up on today's show.
Funny thing was Dave Matthews. I was the band performer, and I came up to him and I told him, I said, I'm from Chicago. And that was right after, I don't know, you heard that story where the tour bus dumped the stuff into the Chicago River. He just looks at me and goes, don't start. I said, no, I'm not going to talk. When the Bay of Pigs happened in 61, we had to leave.
Yeah, no, of course. And
Everybody had to leave, all Americans. I'm very happy. I've learned from a lot of the blues guys. Hipling chain is one of the, is that you got to be happy in yourself. You just put your heart and soul into it, and you're going to be fine. But you in building a brand. That's why it's really important to have a teacher that can relate to set goals. I mean, they were just playing like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I wanted to play more Beatles stuff. But you have to have a teacher that shows you, well, this is what you could do, and then inspire you to get to, it's a progress.
I'm April Paige, breaking down the what, when, where, and how creatives get their inspiration. I'm a big fan of the Kersey words, and I've been a creative for 30 plus years in marketing and fine art. This is where creatives unite to break down the facts of creative life. Buckle up, let's get lost in the world of creativity together.
Welcome everyone to Artist Antics with April, where we talk to creatives about creativity. And today I'm excited to sit down to talk to Steve Arvey, a professional guitarist and bass player. Steve was born in Chicago, lived in Havana, Cuba, and currently resides in Florida. Steve is a fixture as major festivals, nightclubs throughout the South, Europe, and Caribbean. He is also considered by many to be one of the top cigar box guitar players in the world today. His father had a business in Cuba, and due to the political pressures, they had to return to Chicago. His mother, Celeste Ravel, who was a former jazz singer in the Wayne King Orchestra. Steve's first exposure to music was blues music that was played on Maxwell Street in Chicago, which I can't wait to talk about. Moved to Florida, where he met Delta blues guitar player Ben Andrews, and then started playing bass with Bo Diddley. He's played with musicians like Junior Wells, Jimmy Rogers, Hubert Sumlin, Big Smokey Smothers, Homesick James, Sammy Fender, Detroit Jr., Lucky Lopez, and others. And in 81, he formed his own band named West Side Heat, where he recorded Crazy Mixed Up World and several solo projects, Celtic Rovers, Monkey Chow, West Side Heat, and recording playing with Craig Kenning. I hope I'm saying that right. It's been at least 10 times at the Chicago Blues Festival. In 2001, he recorded Fine Line, which got a major airplay in UK and Australia, and he started touring in Australia in 2002. His popularity in Australia got a slot on the 2005 Byron Bay Blues and Roots Festival and was signed to Warner International and appeared on the compilation CD for the festival, which included tracks from Dave Matthews, REM, Jack Johnson, and others. In 2012, Steve formed a group named the Delta Swamp Rats, which featured his cigar box guitar. The group's raw sound, which was labeled Mississippi Delta Funk, raised Steve's popularity in the cigar box guitar Americana world. Welcome, Steve.
Welcome.
Thanks
for having me on. By the way, Michael Stipe is a great guy. So is Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
Even though I was a small-time blues guy on that festival, both those guys treated me with a lot of respect, and it was really fun hanging out in this big green room they had with the food and everything. Was
awesome.
Really good. Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, no, I just your background is so rich, and I can't wait to dive into this. And
the funny thing was Dave Matthews. I was the band performer, and I came up to him and I told him, I said, I'm from Chicago, and that was right after, I don't know, you heard that story where the tour bus dumped the stuff into the Chicago River. He just looks at me and goes, don't start. I said, no, I'm not going to talk. That was pretty so, yeah, that was that.
Yeah,
no, that's a good. They still have that festival going on. It's kind of changed a lot, but it was really nice how they had, like, blues guys like myself, and then they had. But anyway, there's so much to talk about. Let's not talk about that.
No,
Anyway,
for sure. And blues is my favorite genre of music. I mean, I sing it in jam bands. I also paint blues musicians on canvas. So, I can't have picked a better topic to dive in with you. So, my first question is, when did you realize? And I love hearing this first, initial spark of passion for music. I know what mine was as a child, and I just want to hear, like, when did you realize you had a passion for music? Did it come from your family, a teacher, something you saw? I just love to hear that
yeah,
initial story, if you could even
I
remember.
mean, I grew up, my grandmother was an organ player and she played in silent movies and then did some sub work at Wrigley Field doing the B3 dump bump bump bump
Yeah,
bump. So that was kind of cool. My mother, of course, I never saw her with the Wayne King, but thanks for mentioning the Wayne King Orchestra. But I grew up in a jazz and my dad liked percussion, so we were into like listening to like a lot of bossa nova and Cuban rhythms. And
mm,
I think really um, it was in high school when Sandy Schwarzman came from New York and transferred to Chicago. He was a lot like Bob Dylan. He had the curly hair, and then he played guitar, and it was just he brought it to a party, and I saw everybody responded to like the sound of the guitar, and that was probably what really sparked me into playing guitar. Uh, I had lessons when I was younger at Carnes Music when I was 13, but they that's why it's really important to have a teacher that can relate to set goals. I mean, they were just playing like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I wanted to play more Beatles
right,
stuff. But you have to have a teacher that shows you, well, this is what you could do, and then inspire you to get to, it's a progress. I educate a lot, and so, but no, it was pretty much in high school. Sandy Schwarzman, him playing that a Neil Young song, so Cowgirl in the Sand. So that was
yeah.
yeah.
No, very good, very good. So, before we get into more music, I just wanted to ask, only because I'm Cuban by heritage. So, I just wanted to ask about living there in 58 to 61. When do you remember? What was it like? Is there anything that sticks
Well,
out, musically or not? I'm just curious to have that conversation. Yeah.
yeah, no, so I moved down there in March of 1958.
Hmm.
My father was already dealing with a guy down there. He had met my dad used to go down there to gamble, so around 50, 56, uh 56 to 50, somewhere around 56 to 57, he started traveling down there and he met a guy by the name of Nunos Jimenez. And Nunos was he spent a lot of time at Matanzas and in the cave and was a spelunker and knew about bat guano. And if you go to the my dad's picture is still in Havana at the museum of Supso, the Museum of History of Cuba. It's pretty interesting. You see my dad up there with Nunos and Fidel, and so my dad was down when was it Batista was down there, and he was
Hmm.
trying to do business, but it was kind of hard because he was very tied in with the mob, but Batista and the so then when the revolution happened, my dad was there to pretty much fund the revolution. I mean, the revolution was supposed to I could go an hour about the history of Cuba, but
Right.
we once 1959 the revolution they took power, then my dad started doing good business with with Cuba and exporting bat guano, which is a fertilizer. We package it in little boxes and more of on a retail way of doing going into United States and then into mostly Europe, because then when Castro came up to try to talk about trade wars, it's going on right now. Castro came up to in April of '59. He came up to the United States to deal with uh, uh, Eisenhower, and then Eisenhower didn't have the time, and he got hooked up with Nixon, and the as my mom used to say, Fidel el rey de la llore. He's like he just talks a lot, very loud, boisterous, and it didn't go well. And then they had to, Cuba had to sell their sugar, and America was just trying to protect our, the U.S. Sugar Company and the California. Oh, I forgot that, but so the deal. Then they started dealing more with Turkey. Che Guevara went over to Turkey and other Russia and started doing selling sugar and all our products too. But then it all boiled when the Bay of Pigs happened in '61. We had to leave.
Yeah, no, of course, and
everybody had to leave. All Americans had to leave. So
no, for sure. But what was the culture like there when you were there? I mean, I know a
I
little
was
bit
very
about it.
young. I was very young, and so I don't really remember a lot of stuff.
Okay.
I remember a few things, but it was so. I mean, I
Yeah.
left. So I was like 4 years old when I left, or 5.
Okay. I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, so that wouldn't apply. So, um, I love to hear the story about when you felt you had quote unquote made it. Like after you started in high school to play, and I know from your bio some of the timeline of what happened, but I guess I love to talk to that on my interviews only to help the audience realize it's not so scary to be a creative if you want to. But I love to hear like how did you what were the steps or who lifted you up in order for you to quote unquote make it?
Well, let's first of all let's define the word "make it." I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very happy. I've learned from a lot of the blues guys. Hippling chain is one of the is that you got to be happy in yourself. Yeah, I'm not like some of the bigger stars in the blues world or whatever.
No,
I'm
and
not
I
a
guess
rock star. I'm
like you making it by when you realized you could do it full time.
uh well, it was Honey Boy Edwards in 2004 that told me just to stop a day job and just put everything into it. And it was funny. We were on the way to the Lansing, Michigan, and I was on the phone negotiating deals and all this stuff. And then he told me to pull over. He said, "Stop. Why don't you just play music full time?" And I'm like, "Well, what's going to happen if I run out of money? Where am I going to live?" He goes, "You can stay with me." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I gave I gave my 2 week notice, and then yeah, I mean, I had another job though when I came to Florida. That's a long story, but yeah, I mean, if you put your time and energy into it, I got a guy Stumpy Joe actually that like makes this bass here. You'll see videos of Stumpy,
Yeah.
and he goes around, and a lot of times he doesn't have any gigs, but he goes and stop. You just put your heart and soul into it, and you're going to be fine. But you in building a brand. But I never, I'm really happy with where I'm at. I mean, I'm not. I do need to, do a few other things, get another band together and whatever. But it's all in God's will, and I just every day, like today, I'm going to be doing a thing for Cole Clark Guitars, and then I'm playing with the Kevin Officer from Stick Figure tonight. I don't know if you know the band Stick Figure. So we have another project with another guy, and it's just all this stuff falls together. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's great.
but when did I realize that? I don't know. I just keep going on and put my faith in my higher power and God, and just keep going for it. And it's interesting. There's frustrations, there's double bookings, and there's some maybe some promoters, some people don't like you or whatever. But it's a big world out there, and thank
Yeah.
God for YouTube. It's like
Yes.
I get
No, it
to.
is a big world, and I talk about that all the time with everybody I speak to is that, you have everybody has something to provide to the world that we live in as far as creativity, and I think there's room for everyone. Even if I paint next to somebody using the same reference photo, it's never going to be exactly the same. We're not going to both create the same image. It just is what it is. We're human, and that's would be an original. So I just feel like everybody has something original to bring to creativity, whether it's music or art or photography or poetry, whatever it is. Um, and, going into that, I feel like, there's a lot of players that you can tell have different influences. Like, even though they're a blues player, they might have jazz running through some of the riffs that they do, and you can hear it.
Right.
Right. And so I'm curious, like, I know Chicago blues is kind of where you started, and you have the Cuban influence and then jazz from your mom. How did all those different genres affect your playing in particular? And how would you describe, I mean, I know it says Mississippi Delta blues, but I guess would that be, how you would describe your style now, you know?
There's an old blues guy by the name of Little Brother Montgomery, Uriel Montgomery, and I got criticized when I was younger because I was doing everything from off the blues scene. I was in a dead band, doing I was doing Irish music. I'm pretty much, the Chicago Rovers. I'm pretty much a musical whore. Uh, I like I like to make money. I like to play and music, and um, I I like what for this for St. Patrick's Day. I'm very proud that myself and Anton we did two complete 90-minute shows of all Irish music,
Oh,
and
cool.
you just learn it, and then and I do a lot with Celtic, and other
Yeah,
Celtic stuff, and I think it's important. When I'm at a blues festival, Clearwater Blues Festival, Stumpy and I, we played blues. We played
right.
deep Mississippi Delta blues. I got Chicago Blues Explosion. So I like to put, I do these different projects.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe a
think
lot of
that's great. It just shows that you have a love of music, period, I
right.
think.
Now,
Yeah,
the great thing about YouTube is if you take a look at the analytics, it'll tell me, I've got over 16,000 subscribers, and it shows, I get like 50,000 views a month, and then I get to see what the people like. My brand mostly is cigar box guitar. So
okay,
the YouTube recommends that they love my style, and I'm not a great singer, and I'm not a great player. I'm just playing my own brand of like this, slidey stuff. What can I say? It's
yeah,
that's my niche. But the nice thing is that there's a billion subscribers on YouTube, so I get people all over the world that
right.
tune in. So
So
anyway,
I saw that you have lessons for the cigar box guitar, and I saw you playing it on your YouTube channel, and I saw also, side note, the bass player playing that oar and wash basin, which I think is what you're alluding to.
Stumpy,
Yeah. So my question is, like, how did playing the cigar box guitar come about? It's so cool.
Stumpy Joe. Yeah. Um,
We'll put his
oh, all
information
right.
in.
So yeah, the cigar box guitar that was in. I saw Microwave Dave in Milwaukee. We did a split show, and he only had three strings. He had a cigar box guitar. It was two band. Just amazing. He played after us, and even though I was playing all sorts of set stuff, Jimmy Vaughn, and I like Jim a lot, and Ronnie Earl, but it's this guy just comes up with like this slide sound that was just string, three string, like this, it just he just had an old, three string guitar, uh, with a humbucker, and
Yep.
it was just like, wow, what a sound. So that's what try to build, and the first one wasn't really good. I didn't understand the intonation.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, somewhat not killer string brand, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Along, so yeah, so that just which is and little by little, I just started getting into the whole North Mississippi hill sound, that country stomp, uh, that instead of just regular Chicago blues. So I started getting into all the great, Mississippi Fred McDowell and
I painted
the
Mississippi
Sopranos.
Mississippi
Yeah, the
John
Sopranos.
Hurt. Do you know John Hurt?
No. He was more of Hurt's more of a finger picker. I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of uh, um, uh, the Fat Possum Records, the Mississippi All Stars, and what's the name of the guy? I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got into that sound.
Very cool.
That's sort of how Samantha Fish started her sound too. Was getting into that North Mississippi
Yep.
hill country stomp.
Yeah, I definitely I like the players from that area, regardless. It seems to be what
Burnside, R.L. Burnside.
Oh,
R.L.
there you go.
Burnside.
There you go.
R.L. Burnside just started he exposed a lot of the, Fat Possum Records. Yeah. So Charlie Old, he lived down here. He filmed a lot of those people. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, what is your process when you're writing music or writing a song? Like, take us from like inspiration to, do you just start playing around and find some notes and then go to it, or how does that work?
3 ways I write a song. Either I hear them, I come up with a melody, I just the dreams I left behind. I just restarted. I started doing that song. People like that. Say, when I think of all the dreams we left behind, and so then I write the chords around that, and then so that's one way. Second way is beats. A lot of times I got GarageBand and then that rhythm gives me an idea of how to do something. And then the third way is pretty much a riff. I'll come up with like a guitar riff, and all of a sudden I don't know if this is even in tune, so I'll just come up. It's not in tune, but I come up with like some riff, and then
Right, and then you just layer it from there.
then it's like out of tune, but anyway. So yeah, then I come up with a riff, and then it's sort of like how Keith Richards wrote "Satisfaction." Actually, I was watching one of the AC/DC's newer videos, and Angus just took like a lot of John Lee Hooker riffs and turns them into new songs, so.
Yeah, no, for sure. The Stones took from the South as well. Yeah, that's what they're.
You just come up with riffs, and the great thing about our box guitars, there's a whole, with all the different tunings. So that's what gets me to write songs.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love to hear that, so that people get other ideas on how to create. So thank you for that. Where would you like to see music and creativity in the future? We can talk about AI or how music is being distributed, or the internet. What are your thoughts there?
Here's what we need more. Okay. One great thing about the 60s and 70s is you take a look at Cream. Okay. So Ginger Baker had a really cool style of drums. Jack Bruce had his voice, bass playing. Clapton had his way. You put those 3 guys together, let each person in the band add to 33%, bam.
Yeah.
What a sound. You take a look at all the guys in. So, it comes in with Clapton. You've Jen Rufford's there. Comes in after Collins moves to the other, vocal. You take a look at a band like Yes. Wow. Rick Wakeman, Chris Squire, John Anderson to that vocal, like Heart of the Sunrise. That's a song. Heart of the Sunrise. Dream on to the heart of the sunrise.
Yeah.
Uriah Heep. Those guys answered it. It's I'm getting sick of going, I get called for sessions and they're like, well, lay this track down. Great, but getting people together and letting best bands I had, none was the Delta Swamp Rats. I mean, Ernie, none of us were really great. Aaron's got his sound. I had my sound. We didn't even have a bass player. We all had. You put us all together, it creates a sound. It's That's how it's supposed to be. I just did a gig with Rebecca the Songbird, and her band. I played bass. Mike Kripe's a great guitar player, and she's got a new drummer. I love this guy, and out of Rochester, Mike, and it played a festival, and we never played, but the sound was really cool because of the chemistry we all have.
Yeah,
So
no, and we talk about that a lot on this channel about, co-creating and how it's usually something better than the three of you, separately or how many ever it is. But you have to, you have to have that fine line of having technique and being able to, riff and knowing when to do that and having some tasteful, sounds to go with what's going on. And sometimes if it's not tasteful, that's what the song requires, then, I just think it's cool to see people, playing off of each other and weaving together to make something bigger than themselves. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
I've got a I've got a song, and we can put a link to it on my YouTube called
Sure.
Venice Beach. And I got Eamon Fowle came in and he plays this great slide, and then Rebecca the Songbird comes in with these really tough, really great harmonies, and it's the song. If you don't have her come in on that harmony and Eamon on the slide, it's like the song just works. Same thing with Pete Cornelius, who when I did my album Free Range, he did most of the
Mhm.
producing on that, and it's just everybody in that studio would all create and harmonies. I mean, we need more bands with harmonies. So anyway,
Yeah.
um,
No, I agree, and I love harmonies. Like my great aunt used to sing in harmony at our family gatherings and taught me how to find those notes, and it's kind of a definitely have to have it drilled in to hear those when people are
yeah,
singing. So it's thanks to her, I know how to do some of it anyway. Not even half as good as she did, but in Chicago, did you have any Cuban experiences in Chicago? Because I know when I was growing up in Sarasota, Florida, my grandfather used to take me every Saturday to these Spanish dances. That's what they called them, where they would play the Spanish music and everybody would dance. And he would, dance me in the ground until my feet would bleed and then go find another partner. um, but so I just am curious, like, even in Sarasota, there was a little bit of Spanish influence in the neighborhood. And I'm sure there's pockets of that in Chicago, but was that something you guys did when you were growing up? Did your family take you to things like that in Chicago?
no,
No, you didn't do
we
any of
there wasn't a real big Cuban community as there is in Florida.
it. Okay.
There was always My mother always had an embarrassment of Cuba because we got stripped of all of our money and all that, and you just didn't talk about Cuba in the house. There's a
Mm,
lot of Cuban Americans and gusanos, as they say, that um, you know, uh, you just don't talk about
yep.
uh, Cuba. Now Miami's much different. When it came down here early in Florida, now you're talking. But most of the community where I live now is mostly Brazilian. So
Mm,
I don't. There's because I'm in Bradenton, Sarasota. We don't have as many Cubans as like on the East Coast.
yeah, no, for
But
sure.
uh,
Yeah. So what, and I ask all guests this question, like, what do you think about AI? And are you using it at all for anything? And what do you think about it in regards to creativity? I just am curious what everyone's thoughts are about using AI for being creative. Yeah.
No comment. I don't use AI. I just
Okay.
I do use but I will tell you, if if you're a musician and you want to expand your horizon and
Yeah.
learn about producing music, just use GarageBand. I've got
Great.
you go on my YouTube channel. You'll just put Steve Arvey, GarageBand. I've got all these different things that I've done through GarageBand. GarageBand helps you in your timing, just like a looper. I gave a guitar lesson to a guy yesterday, and by learning, time signatures and looping and putting things in, you can do so much with GarageBand. A lot of people are going to say, "Well, I want to use Pro Tools and
Yeah.
some of the other, which is good, but GarageBand is a great way to learn on how to put some loops in, learn how to use. If you listen to a lot of the stuff that I do, Mississippi Winds and some of the stuff on YouTube. Storm Warning is a perfect example. Storm
Mm.
Warning was on a shovel guitar, and all I did was shovel in one drummer, and then I put in all the B3. So I do like a lot of B3 on GarageBand, just add the stuff in and growls and learn how to do harmonies with it. So GarageBand is really a great thing for musicians
And you
to
can use that on the road too, I'm sure, right? Like you can use GarageBand if you have a laptop and you're on the road.
Well, yeah, no, it's yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, in lessons that you give, I want to talk about that. Like what, how, what is it to be a teacher and, your students that are learning from you? Like, talk to us about that. Like, what are you hearing from them? Do you have any prodigies coming up, that you have your eye on, stuff like that?
Well, we were talking about CJ. I mean, CJ's already well advanced in
Yes.
and knowing Albert King, and he's got we traveled for 4 hours back and forth to St. Augustine, and all we did was listen. He's got all these Stevie Ray Vaughan bootlegs, and he knows about a lot of the guitar players. Like yesterday, we were I'm helping him with his YouTube channel. He was talking about this one riff, and it was pretty much an Albert Collins riff.
Mm,
So he, I just show him a few Magic Sam stuff, and he just takes off. Yesterday we recorded. It'll be on my YouTube channel. The things I used to do by Guitar Slim, Guitar Slim, Eddie Jones, specialty records in the 50s. Just
yeah.
and then I showed him my bass line when he's played for Junior Wells. He did it going down slow. So in Chicago, if you were a sub, you needed to do the bass line a certain way,
Yeah.
and then there was a guitar part that was, so yeah, I mean, he's already got it down. The main thing with students, and I've taught a lot of schools, is that the kids, and you could go on YouTube, just put Steve Arvey lessons. You'll see a lot of people
Yeah.
I gave
I'm gonna
lessons.
connect
You
them.
have to go home and learn. I can only take you so far. So I've had problem working like with music stores, because Johnny comes in, the parents bring him, I give him a lesson. I tape it, go home, learn it. Then the next week he comes back and there's nothing. He didn't do
Yeah.
anything, and I'm like, so we got to go over it again. Then the third time, the same thing happens. I got parents like, are you calling my kid stupid? No, no, no. It's just you got to work on it, no matter how old you are. It's just, and you just gotta find the timing. It's all guitar playing and bass playing is all rhythm. Same thing harmonica. It's like just take your time, slow, just take your
Yeah.
time and you'll get it. It's
Yeah, no, for sure.
I
You
don't use
gotta
a
put the
guitar pick, so
You got to
You know, a
put the
lot of people.
time in, because I talk about this with my art as well. I think it's for any artist, really. You have to have the technique, right? And then you have to, from that technique, be able to let go enough for the magic to happen, that's coming through you. And but you have to have all of that time in that work before you are able to riff, so to speak, because and you can play off the other players and things like that, and throw things in that might make them turn their head. So I just think it's really important and a good point that you're making, that you have to put the time in, you have to get really good at it. And then, he's lucky to have you to show him all those other influences too. Cause I think that's important. Just like me, and any artist, I feel as well, you're always growing, right? So, I think you grow as an artist. I'm coming into a new style now because my style's been too flat. So now I'm trying to put some more energy onto it. And I'm trying to figure out what that is, and that's from taking from other people that I love what they're doing, that is more, random and energetic on their paintings. So I'm trying to merge all of that together. So I think, for CJ, it's great for him to have that exposure, not only to you in real life, but the others that have come before us, to give him ideas of what else, where else can you go with it, so he can make his own style. So I think that's great.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, take a look on my YouTube channel at the band Chicago Blues Explosion. That's Biscuit
Okay.
Miller and myself. And then he plays guitar with us. And then I got a shout out to Vincent Sims. Vince Sims is a great guitar player who lives down here, and Vince is helping. So it's not just about me, It's just that
Yeah.
I'm glad that CJ is out, just soaking up a lot of different things.
Yeah, no,
And,
that's awesome.
um,
And I gonna thank you for your time today. I'm right at my timing, so thank
yeah,
you so much. And um for everybody listening, I'm gonna put all of Steve's info, all the links that we've talked about in this session today. I'll put it in the description so you can find him in many different ways. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
you're welcome. Thank you, and everybody out there. Enjoy life, stay healthy, and keep creating. And
Yes.
musicians, YouTube can be a great place for you to go out and expose your music to the world, and be yourself, and don't take yourself seriously. And subscribe to my channel, please.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much.
If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Feel free to nominate yourself or someone you know as our next guest. Thank you for being a part of our creative community. Stay inspired and keep shining bright.